Saints fans and who that's from all over the world. It's time for the Bayou Blitz. With your host, Bob Rose.
Good evening, New Orleans Saints fans of the NFL, and football fans from all over the world. We welcome you to another episode of the Bayou Blitz, and we thank you so much for inviting us into your homes on another Wednesday evening. Joining me, as always, is my backfield mate and my partner in crime, Mr. Kyle Mosley. How are you tonight, Kyle?
Doing well, Mr. Rose. What's going on in Ohio?
Up here we're doing well. As anybody that follows me knows, we just celebrated young Will's first birthday this past Saturday. Family and a couple close friends, came out on what turned out to be a beautiful afternoon, and he enjoyed every minute of it, and I think everybody had a good time. Family moments like this are just, they're what life's all about. It's truly unforgettable.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, you tell little guy I'm going to come up there and hang out with you guys one weekend so we can watch a Saints game together or something.
We got plenty of room, and what's funny about him, even as a newborn last year, he was very, very responsive. Every time I had a Saints football game on, or even if I just plugged in a highlight tape, even to this day, he doesn't watch much TV, which is odd for a little kid like that. But every time I have football, or especially the New Orleans Saints on, he actually gets excited. Now, we know, of course, his mood probably rivals the old man's here as I'm sitting watching the game. But nonetheless, I've been told it's pretty cute to watch.
Well, look, man, Kyle and I used to do the same thing. He would be right there with me, and I'm running around. We score a touchdown, or we have a bad play. He's right there with me, right behind me. So those things happen with the little guys. I did the same with my dad. Many are disappointing times back in those days, but it's still good at all just to have your son right there with you through it, man. So he's going to remember this. Just pay close attention, Will, and Dad, you pay close attention to him as well, man. It's fun times.
Yeah, without a doubt. Joining us right off of the bat tonight is a family man himself and a member of the New Orleans Saints family, because as we know, once a Saint, always a Saint.
Yep.
Former Penn State great and history-making New Orleans Saints running back, Mr. Brian Milne. Welcome to our show tonight, Brian.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Oh, man, welcome. We got a former great Saint. You got a great last name, too.
Well, you're funny you say that. Do you know the history behind my last name?
No, go ahead. Tell us.
Yeah.
So a distant, and I mean distant cousin, was A.A. Milne, M-I-L-N-E. You know what he wrote?
No.
The name sounds familiar.
Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh, really?
No.
Get out of here.
Yes, I'm a distant cousin of the writer who wrote Winnie the Pooh, A.A. Milne.
Get out of here. Wow.
That is your fun fact for tonight.
Well,
that's awesome. And I'll, my oldest daughter, Brianna, who's out at her grandparents right now, Bria, if you're listening, dig out a couple of those Winnie the Pooh books. I read those. I have a bunch of them nearly engraved in my memory. That is a pretty cool fact.
Wow, that is pretty cool.
It's crazy. You know what's even crazier is I ain't seen a dime of that money.
Well, look, Brian, the word was distant, right?
Correct. Like distant to the third power. Correct.
Well, in New Orleans, Milne Boys' home was not too far from where I live, but they pronounce it Milne in New Orleans, and as well as there's a Milne Boulevard in Lakeview. So,
sure.
That's a great name. I know there's a lot of tradition behind that name, so awesome.
Yeah, Scotch-Irish, yeah. It's a lot of people have trouble pronouncing it, but Yeah, it's a lot of history behind it.
Awesome.
I'm glad to have you on the show for a couple reasons, Brian. First of all, it's been a pleasure to get to know you and your wife Tammy a little bit over the last couple of years through social media. You guys are wonderful to talk to, and as I said last night to you, I've been a big fan of your career, but also important. I've been adopted into what they call the Southern Mafia down there. The New Orleans Saints fans and sports people, and I keep saying that I'm going to bring as much northern flavor as I can. Not only myself currently living around the Pittsburgh area, but we've had Lyndon Stevens and his dad Max Stevens on, and they were originally from Cleveland, Ohio. You and I grew up about an hour apart, and you went to school up in Erie, and of course attended Penn State. So, we're gonna have our northern faction of the Southern Mafia yet.
Well, I think we're probably going to learn more than we can teach when we go down there anytime. So
I'll agree with that. I will agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how long were you with the team, Brian? I forget.
I was only with the team for a year.
Just 1 year?
Yeah, I had played with Cincinnati for about 3.5 or so. I sprained my knee. Wouldn't play injured for the Bengals. We were terrible. Got picked up by Holmgren with the Seahawks, played a half a year with him, had a great year. And then when Randy Mueller went from the Seahawks to the Saints, he brought me with him. So I was with the Saints for a full year.
Okay. Seems like longer that you were with the team, So,
I appreciate I made an impact. I appreciate that.
You did. We Who-Dats know you, especially with the name.
Right. I remember the first day at camp in New Orleans. After practice, I had to have 2 bags of fluids in me because I couldn't walk. I was so dehydrated because it was so hot. I think in 2 days I probably lost close to 20 pounds.
Wow.
Very quickly. And the second day I had to have fluids in me. It was unbearable heat. It was nothing like I ever experienced before, but man, that's the South.
Yeah, man, look, and a lot of people, especially the players, and I've talked to some of those guys, like you said, unaccustomed to the heat. It's not really heat, it's the sauna, the humidity that really gets you, right? When they go through those first few practices, it's just crazy. Here in Houston, those guys go through the same thing. It's really a problem for a lot of those players to get acclimated on the Texan squad.
Yeah, there's so much water in the air. You can't breathe water. It's kind of hard. So, it takes some time to get acclimated.
Awesome.
And that's the thing. We hear people up here talking about, and it can get humid up here, don't get me wrong. And to be fair, it has been more than a few years since I've spent any time down south. But I do remember what it was like, too. So when I hear people talking about how humid and how close the air gets up here, I just kind of chuckle to myself. Especially this time of year, because we know, that the football players are getting ready for camp, whether it's high school 2-a-days or, colleges and universities, or obviously our NFL teams that are in the Gulf Coast and down south regions. And, Brian, you perfectly described what, the special things that you have to go through just to keep yourself on the field. And, of course, it could become a dangerous health issue if you're not careful.
Oh, absolutely. You're totally on ball. It's rough. It's a different type of heat.
How was it playing in the Superdome back then? That was the old carpet, and I used to march on that field when I was with McDonald 35 High School. But man, just to play on that layer of cushion, and you felt concrete right there.
Oh, absolutely. It was, I think most of the stadiums were built in the 60s. You look at Riverfront for the Bengals, where the Eagles played, where the Steelers played. It was like basically putting a carpet over cement. So yeah, it was pretty rough. It wasn't like the nice stadiums, the nice cushion fields that we have today. Even the high schools now, they have $1 million fields, which I think a lot of the players in the programs deserve. But back in the day, it was a little different for us.
Yeah, definitely.
No question about it. And Kyle asked you about the Superdome turf. I wanted to ask you, and I know we're going to ask you a couple comparison questions tonight. But the year you played in New Orleans, of course, the team kind of rose from the ashes, for lack of a better term. Made a run to the playoffs when nobody expected it. So really got the fan base excited. And we know that the Superdome, when the fans are into it, is one of the loudest stadiums in professional football. But you played at Penn State too, and you played for some really powerful Joe Paterno teams. Yeah. So tell us, which of the two stadiums got louder? Was it the one in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, or down there in New Orleans, Louisiana?
Well, it's kind of hard to compare them because the Dome versus Happy Valley. You have 107,000 people. I think what's a Dome holds 65,000 or so. It's a different type of noise, but both are extremely, extremely loud. Nothing's better than the noise when you're winning. So the biggest change for me was coming from Penn State. 105,000 people, 107,000 people, then playing for the Bengals. And we'd have 40,000 people. It was really quiet. It was very weird to hear the snap count when I was, behind Jeff Blake or Boomer Esiason. It was so quiet in the stadium. It was refreshing to go to Seattle and then eventually New Orleans, and where the stadiums are full. So that for me was a treat.
No question about it. Guys, I don't know if either, I'm sure you both caught the news, but, speaking of running backs, the Saints made a little bit of a wave today. They signed running back Shane Vereen, who began his career with the New England Patriots and has played his last few years with the New York Giants. And to make room for Vereen's signing on the roster, they waived Daniel Lasco, and our prayers are certainly with Daniel. We know he's recovering from a serious neck injury. But what do you guys think about that move with Vereen, especially with knowing that Mark Ingram is going to be suspended for the first 4 games of the season?
I think you have to. You have to have some type of depth. I mean, your main guy, he's out for whatever reason, and you have to have some depth, especially at running back. If he's going to carry the ball 20, 25 times a game, you have to have some backups. He tweaks an ankle or, gets the wind knocked out of him, wherever it may be, you still have to continue that drive. So, you have to have that depth. So I think it was a good move by the Saints.
Yeah, and I have to concur. But also think about this. We haven't even gone through training camp yet. And through training camp, you usually have an injury or somebody gets a tweak here or there, right? So to have the depth is only a necessity at this time, especially to have veteran depth. And, Wes may be a better fit to complement Ingram, but we don't know if the Saints really brought in Vereen also to help out with special teams efforts as well. Yeah. So it's a good pickup either way. Vereen always was a pretty solid performer. He may not been the most outstanding guy all the time, but when he was with New England and those guys, he really was a solid performer.
Yeah, he really was, and I agree with you both. I saw a lot of fans talking in the message boards, hey, why are we bringing in another veteran running back? We already have so many bodies there. Well, like you pointed out, Brian, you need bodies, and we all know that there's going to be, whether we like it or not, there's going to be injuries. You hope it's not to the key guys, and you hope that nobody gets injured seriously. But it's something else to consider. Alvin Kamara is already one of the better running backs, better all-around running backs in the league. But with Ingram's absence in those first 4 games, look at the lack of experience depth that they've had behind them. Jonathan Williams has had, I think, 27 total carries in his 2 or 3 year career. Trey Edmonds, who showed some flashes last year, but he only has like 9 career carries. Boston Scott is a rookie. I do not blame Sean Payton at all for bringing in Terrence West and Shane Vereen. I look at it as a low risk, high reward signing. If your young guys step up and can do the job, great. That's what they're there for. If they falter a little bit, or you kind of waver in trust in your trust of them, especially in key situations early in the season, you have Vereen, you have Terrence West. They have been there, done that, especially Vereen, who's played for some championship New England Patriot teams. And as you said, Kyle, can lend a hand on special teams. He's a good back coming out of the backfield on third downs. And Terrence West, I think you pointed out, Brian, Terrence West is more of a Mark Ingram style of runner, stays between the tackles, but can pick up that tough yardage. And they're not going to have to run Kamara into the ground. So I like the signing. I don't think there's anything for Saints fans to be worried about whatsoever.
Yeah, and Bob, think about this. Vereen is also good when it comes to blitz pickup, right? And he's been behind Brady. He's been behind Manning. So you have a guy that's familiar with blitzing defenses in this league. So to have someone like that to complement what we have already with Kamara, and Wes is not a slouch himself. So yeah, more depth, Brian. I concur. The better. And look, we still don't know who may be cut. There's going to be a few veterans out there through the next several weeks and months before we start the season. You're going to have somebody that's going to be cut. So we know that there's a potential for the team to sign more people to this roster.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. If you're not the main guy, if you're not the main running back, in those skill positions, you're not the, top 3 wide receivers, you have to play special teams. You have to be good at special teams. Even when I was a starting fullback towards the end of the season with the Saints, I was covering kicks, I was covering punts, and I was a starter. But these guys coming in, even in camp, you need those bodies. You need to find out who's going to work out, who's not getting it. But really, those second string, those third string guys, if they're going to make the team, they have to play well at special teams.
Yeah, definitely. And, to have a guy like you covering kicks really helped us out. So, I really agree with that, Brian. But, guys, think about it like this. If you have a Vereen or if you have a West, it's a compliment. Compliment guys are always going to go a long way. And there, like you said, there are a few stars out there, but if you have a guy that can be able to complement, understand your system, and Vereen has operated in some similar systems before, why not have him on board? Why not?
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
like
you almost have to have them.
Yeah, exactly, Brian. Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you pointed out, Brian, a lot of these guys, your stars are going to be your stars, but a lot of these guys, they're going to make the team based off how well they play on special teams. And, you can attest more than anybody, a game can be won or lost as a result of one special teams play.
Exactly.
So you not only have to be prepared when you strap up that chin strap on the offensive or defensive side of the ball, you're not taking any plays off on special teams either, on punt coverage or kick coverage or any of that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, the special teams part of the NFL isn't going to make it usually doesn't make SportsCenter. It's the unseen yards, you're 4th and 10, but your punter does a good job and your coverage team does a good job, and you pin the other team at the 8. They got to go 92 yards now versus half the field. So that's a big difference, and a lot of people don't see that difference in that field positioning. So that's really important. Special teams are huge in the NFL, but they kind of, I think, sometimes go unnoticed.
Right. Coach Rick Gailey used to say it best, Bob, special teams must be special. And he gave a good fact all the time. If a special team, like on kickoff returns or punt returns, if we can be able to prevent an extra 5 to 7 yards, that means a whole possession or extra possession that team has to go into. Or if we can be able to gain an extra 7 to 10 yards, that means we get the higher probability of scoring a touchdown versus kicking a field goal. So special teamers are going to be important in this league, especially with the change of that kickoff rule as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Both of you, and let's focus on perhaps the most famous play of your New Orleans Saints career, Brian, when you recovered that fumbled punt in the playoff game against the St. Louis Rams. And you broke down the play a little bit for us last night on the Under the Dome podcast, and happy anniversary again to those guys. Spectacular show last night, spectacular show as always. But yeah, when you were going down and you were busting your butt to get down there, and you were in position when Akeem had made that bobble. But the just as important thing to realize is if he wouldn't have, he fumbled the ball on a fair catch. But if he would not have fair caught it, he wasn't going anywhere if he did field that pump, because you were in position to bring him down, and that would have been around the 10-yard line. In a game against the defending world champions with one of the better offenses in NFL history, like you had said, there's difference of 5 to 7 yards that could make the difference in winning or losing a football game.
Yeah, I mean, like I said the other night, Joe Paterno was in my head. He always used to tell us that you're never good enough to take a play off, and I kept that. So I knew, looking back, that our defense was getting kind of tired, and it might have been a different story. So, if they got the ball in the 10 or whatever it is and drove down and, scored or kicked a field goal, but, you never can take a play off, and that's what I teach my kids, my linemen, when I coach it here in Cincinnati. So, and a couple of them, I was saying last night, didn't know who Coach Paterno was, and I'm definitely going to change that.
Oh, wow.
So they're going to definitely know who Joe Paterno was and is.
Well, look,
yeah,
Brian, I appreciate.
Makes me shake my head.
Yeah, I appreciate that play. I was right in the dome when you made it, and I was one of those thousands of fans cheering you on. But
thank you.
Tell me this, and you played fullback, right? How was it to play behind Aaron Brooks? Because in my opinion, I think Aaron Brooks gets a bad knock in the Who Dat Nation. But tell me, how was it playing behind him for that season?
I think Aaron Brooks is a great quarterback. I mean, he's, it's hard to explain that, he's, I think, a little more traditional, but he's a good man, good guy, good teammate. So I think the world of Aaron.
Good. So many people forget that he was the first quarterback. And remember, he came in the middle of the season, right, at that Rams game when, was it Blake that was injured? And he came and took over, and he kind of took the team to the playoffs, man. I just wonder, because I never got a feel from a couple of other Saints guys that Aaron was a bad guy, but some of the fans just toward the end of his career just didn't gravitate to Aaron, and they said some really horrible things about him.
Well, being in the locker room is much different than being a fan and, working with these guys and, working your butts off and doing the best you can for your team, your fans, your family. Aaron's a great guy. He was a leader in the huddle. We had confidence in him. We backed him. I can't say enough about him. He's a good quarterback. I think maybe the fans just didn't know him enough or well enough to, wrap their heads around, what he was doing for us. So,
right.
I mean, I completely support him.
Yeah. I think he should be a part of the Saints Hall of Fame. And that's my endorsement. So, but anyway,
that's awesome. I would agree with you completely. Aaron's a great guy.
Definitely. All right, Bob. I'm sorry to hijack the show, Bob. But I just had to ask that question.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No. I just wanted to ask that question from somebody who played with him as well. Joe Horn said the same thing about him. He echoed exactly how you felt about him, Brian. And I look at guys each year being a part of the Saints Hall of Fame, and I'm thinking, why not Aaron? So.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
Well, and Brian, I've heard you say it or mention it on social media a number of times too. So I'll point out, because I'm in total agreement. We as fans, and unfortunately I have been guilty of it myself, we as fans oftentimes forget that there is a human being underneath of that helmet and underneath of those shoulder pads.
Right.
And we tend to get caught up in the fantasy football numbers and just wanting our team to do well, sometimes above all else, and we forget that there is a human being and there is a group of people on the sidelines that are close to each other, and I think that's what makes the locker room and just football players and sports in general a very specific fraternity, because you guys know at the end of the day, it's just you guys. It's just that guy standing next to you in the huddle. Because nobody else is going to go to battle for you. You have to do it for yourself, and you have to do it for the guys around you.
No, you're 100% correct. We're professional athletes in any genre, whether it be tennis, professional soccer, race car driving, anything. Look at LeBron James, all the criticism he's getting for, not staying in Cleveland, going to LA, not going here, not going there. You know what? LeBron James is a person just like I am, just like you are, just like we all are. The difference is he has a trait, he has a talent that separates himself from people who can't play professional basketball.
Right.
But he has feelings. He's a guy just like anybody else. So I'd never fault him for doing what he wants, doing what's best for his family, doing what's best for his career. If he wants to go to LA and play for the Lakers, he should play for the Lakers. He's probably one of the best. He's the best basketball player of all time, one of the best. So,
right.
We are people. Look at Tiger Woods. The ups and downs of his career. We're all human. So, it's just part of the business, I guess.
Yeah. And I got to take something back, guys. I just did some research. He was enshrined in the Saints Hall of Fame in 2014. I guess also I kind of forgot that, and that's on me.
Oh, good.
But still, it wasn't really widely publicized for a lot of people to recognize that honor. So, Aaron, take that back. I'm glad you are a part of the Saints Hall of Fame. So,
good. We love you, Aaron.
Yeah, definitely. And I was a big Aaron Brooks fan too. And your point was still made, Kyle. I'm glad that he got the recognition from his well-deserved recognition from the organization. But when people talk about the great Saints quarterbacks, and there haven't been many. Okay. But obviously, you talk about Drew Brees and you talk about Archie Manning, doing the things he did with very little talent around him. I was always a huge fan of Bobby Hebert. And Jim Everett didn't have a lot of talent around him either during his short time as a Saints career, but he put up some wonderful numbers. People don't talk about Aaron Brooks nearly as often as they should. So I agree with both of you. I think he got a bad rap when he was here. Things didn't end well, for whatever reason. But I am glad to hear that he got his due recognition and at least being in with some of the rest of the Saints greats.
Yeah, he did. So good. Let me ask you a question, Brian. Joe Paterno, what the legacy he left before the ending of his public career, but I'm just thinking about how many young men that he actually influenced to have positive lives. Being a player.
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000. You're right. What was the most important thing about Joe Paterno to you that you can relate to the audience?
I would think Coach Paterno, the first thing that comes to my mind is that he demanded excellence. It wasn't good enough just to be okay, just to do the drill well. He wanted you to be excellent, not only as a student, as a person, but as a football player. He treated the starting quarterback just the same as he did as the fourth-string lineman. It was, with Coach Paterno, it was black and white. There was no gray areas. When we had a team meeting at 6 o'clock, you got there at 10 to 6. If you got there at 5 to 6, you were late because you weren't with the team. So he had a different standard for everyone. He had a different standard for our expectations. He expected you to be good, do well in school. He expected you to speak well in front of the camera. He was a great man, and I miss him.
Wow, awesome. I mean, you guys won. Was it four national championships under him, or 3?
I believe 3, 90 or 82, 86, and then when we were on the 95 team, we were undefeated, won the Rose Bowl. However, at that point in time, the sports writers thought that Nebraska deserved the national title because we had a hard time with Indiana. And looking back at Indiana, we were pretty much handling the whole game, and then we started putting in our second string guys, and they came back, and it wasn't the blowout the writers wanted. Well, Coach Paterno still gave us national championship rings. He said, I don't care what the press says, I don't care what the media says, we're national champions. And actually there was talk after the season to play Nebraska at a neutral site, like a 1v1, okay, this is going to settle it, but the school said no. So I don't know how many people know that, but we were like, yeah, bring it on, let's play Nebraska for the national, let's settle this. Yeah. Let's take it out of the hands of the sports writers or whoever votes at that point in time, and let's do it. But, the powers that be, the school said no. But, Coach Paterno, I still have the ring. It's in the living room. And, he's just class. He's all class.
And that's that's another story. I do remember hearing about that once you brought it up. That's another story that people don't know about Coach, is that he didn't have to arrange for you guys, for the players and the staff to get national championship rings. And, you put it in a politically correct way, but as a big Penn State fan and as someone who went there, and had numerous family members go there, I'll come out and say it. Your team got screwed. You guys were one of the best football teams in college football history. You ran the table. You went undefeated. You had every bit the results on paper that Nebraska did, and you did it in the Big Ten Conference, and you didn't even get consideration. So I'm glad, again, we were talking about Aaron Brooks getting recognition, at least from the Saints organization. I am glad that you guys have gotten the notoriety and the recognition from at least the Penn State University, and certainly the fans that follow you.
Well, we appreciate it. It's a great school. When I was recruited out of high school, and Coach Paterno called me in the hospital when I was fighting cancer, said, just come to Penn State. I only went on one visit. It was to Penn State, and that's all I needed. It was a place for me. It's one of the best schools in the country academically. If you're lucky enough to go to one of the games, it's special. It's just special. And even telling my wife, over the years about all the stories and all the little funny stories of John Whitman and Mike Archie and Kerry Collins. And she finally went to the anniversary of the 25th anniversary of the Rose Bowl game, and she looked at me afterwards and she goes, I get it. Mm-hmm. And, that meant the world to me that I could share that with her, and, all the tailgating and, Mount Nittany, and it's just a real special place. Everyone should go there at least once.
Yeah.
With that, as someone who has gone to a couple games in Happy Valley, I will agree with you, and I have told numerous people the same thing, that you have not experienced college football atmosphere if you haven't gone to a game at State College, Pennsylvania. But let me ask you this. I've known this for quite some time, but for our listeners that don't know, Brian is one of the most recognizable and respected track and field athletes to have ever come out of the state of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Even held a couple shot put and discus records that stood for about 17 years, even on the national level. And Brian, I know you competed in, I believe it was the 92 Olympic trials. What I've been meaning to ask you is how tough a decision was it for you to choose football over a track and field career?
It was, in '96 it was hard. I'll be honest, because I love both. And quite honestly, I think I love track and field a little bit more than football, because really no one's trying to hit me. So, in '96, my thoughts were, I'll never have another opportunity to play in the NFL. If I skip the draft and forgo it, I don't think at the time I thought I didn't have another opportunity. So if I take the opportunity and was blessed enough to be drafted, play in the NFL, maybe I could get out of the NFL and pursue an Olympic, trying to throw the discus. So those were my thoughts going into 96-ish, so it kind of didn't pan out with the discus as much. However, I do it every day with high school kids, and I coach every day, and I love to teach, so it worked out well.
No question about it. And like I've told you before, as a track and field coach in Pennsylvania, I know my kids and our the throwers for West Allegheny High School. They looked up to you as well. Our teams had a lot of success following your high school career, but as I said, you had records that stood really up until about 2 years ago, I think. So people don't realize what a terrific athlete that you truly are. A lot of people say, fullbacks are just down in the dirt, kind of muck and grind kind of guys. And while that's true, you mentioned last night on Under the Dome, and one of your tryouts, maybe for the Bengals, you came out and ran a 4.5 40.
Ooh, wow.
Yes. Well, when I played for the Bengals, and then I think we were playing the Panthers, and we scored, but Corey Dillon ran right in the back of my leg, and I tore my MCL, which usually isn't a big deal, but I needed to rest it, and I needed time for it to heal, and the Bengals were in need of a fullback, and I wasn't available, and I told them I wasn't going to play injured. And the next Wednesday, they let me go. So I had trained with a local gentleman who I know who does high intensity acceleration training on treadmills, where the treadmills go about 25 miles an hour and about 30, 35 degrees incline. I did that for a few weeks, and then I tried out for the Seahawks, and in front of Mr. Mueller, I ran a 4.5640, and at that point he said he's seen enough, let's sign some papers. So it worked out.
As a fullback, wow. That's awesome, Brian. That is awesome.
And to add to that, as a police officer in 12 years, I never lost a foot pursuit.
And I know you were police officer for many years, and a member of SWAT too. A good friend of ours and a good friend of our show, John Butler. He has called you, and I know he's had conversations with you too. He has called you, and I quote, the ultimate badass.
Oh yeah, John. I love John. He's great. Yeah.
We're going to get him on this show. He keeps taking too many family vacations.
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was the guy on the SWAT team who had the 70-pound ram and said hello with the ram. So, yeah.
Now, I wanted, and I know you have that throwback mentality of and a football player that I have always loved. And Kyle, I've been wanting to get your thoughts on this too. Terrell Owens. The Hall of Fame induction ceremony is coming up in a couple of weeks, and as many people know, T.O. got inducted, got voted into the Hall. I believe it was on his third try. He has elected, of course, not to attend the Hall of Fame ceremonies, to instead hold his own individual award ceremony. And I don't know all the details behind that. I personally don't care for all the details behind that. I wanted to get both of your thoughts on what you think about Owen's decision not to attend such an honor.
Wow, Brian, I want to hear your thoughts first.
You're going to throw me under the bus first?
You're the pro. Well, you're the pro.
Well, Terrell Owens is an incredible wide receiver. So from one professional athlete to another, for him not to want to go to the Hall of Fame induction ceremony speaks volumes to me regarding how he feels about the process, probably, about the NFL, and just basically his disgust with, and I'm just guessing here, his disgust with the NFL and him probably feeling that he was wrong in some way. Now, having said that, for him to go back to his high school and visit the people who supported him and always have probably supported him, I think that's great. Having said that, I think when he's older, I think he might regret skipping the ceremony. I think he will. There's somewhere in his mind that he's like, nah, they don't deserve me to go. For whatever reason, and this is just my opinion, obviously, he's mad. He's mad. He's not happy about a few things where he's like, no, I'm not going. For whatever reason it is, I'm going back to the people, my roots. I'm going back to the kids I can inspire. I'm going back to the kids, where I grew up. And, he may regret it when he's older, but, it's his choice.
Sure.
So that's my take.
Wow. This is what I'm going to say, guys. I agree he's going to possibly have some regret, but the ego Terrell Owens has is going to be very minor, Brian.
And that may be true because I don't know Terrell.
Yeah,
I don't. We don't know. I don't know him when he goes home and the garage door closes and he goes in his house. I don't know Terrell.
Right. I don't either. But I can say this: he's a very sensitive guy, and what you see is, and I agree that it's a lot of hurt that he's displaying. And let's be honest, when he left the game, he was number 2 on the all-time yardage list as a wide receiver. And I guess in the back of his mind, why should I have been on the 3rd ballot considered to be a part of the Hall of Fame? And there was a lot of what most of these players have been saying for a long time. The sports writers decide who gets into the Hall of Fame, and I'm glad they started including the players a few years ago to be a part of the process, right? Why isn't Paul Tagliabue in the Hall of Fame?
Right.
Think about that. This guy who was commissioner and helped change the game and was responsible for a lot of what we see of the modern day Hall of Fame, football, NFL football, right? And Terrell Owens, and I think this is his way of protesting, and he has that right as a man to be able to make that decision. I thought it was not a classy thing for the Hall of Fame to decide not to even mention him because he's not showing up. I thought that was really more despicable than the fact that Terrell Owens is not showing up. If you're the Hall of Fame and if you feel as though this is such an honor to be a part of this, mention the man as the person that he is and the career he did have. What's it going to hurt the Hall of Fame to not mention him? And I thought that was not a classy move on their part. Terrell Owens is going to be Terrell Owens, guys. He's going to be who he is. He's always been that way. And I think a lot of sports writers just did not take kindly to that. And you see this all the time, like Barry Bonds and these guys. Of course, people are going to say, oh, steroids and all this stuff. Well, a lot of people took steroids and got into the Hall of Fame, for baseball, right? But it's one of those precarious situations, Bob, where you got to understand the person versus understanding the prestige of it all. Because from a guy who grew up poor and lived across the street from a father he never knew and a father who never acknowledged him until later on in his life, how difficult was that? Your mother wasn't there. The father was right across the street, and he had to live with his grandmother, and he could not get that love and attention, and people say, well, hey, go through therapy, trying to work that out now in your life. Okay, that's fine, but and I'm not trying to be an apologist for him. I kind of understand where he's coming from. The guy had a great career. And every teammate, just like you said, Brian, about Aaron Brooks, every teammate except Jeff Garcia probably felt he was a great teammate, and he really catapulted every team he was a part of, the 49ers, the Eagles, as well as the Cowboys, right? So why not acknowledge what he did on the field? I think writers need to stop to think about what the guy did on the field versus what his personality was like. And I think a lot of writers hold the personality against the player versus evaluating what their career did on the field?
Boy, I tell you, you both surprised me just a little bit in the way you responded. I think I expected something a little bit different. And I don't mean that in a good or a bad way. Although I will say, Brian, if I ever choose to run for politics, I need you to be my campaign manager because I got some skeletons that I need buried, and I think you do a wonderful job of helping me out.
I got your back, brother.
I appreciate that. My take on T.O. is this, guys. In my opinion, first of all, Hall of Fame player, you cannot take that away from him. He deserves every accolade he could receive as far as his achievement on the football field. But my feeling is this: the Hall of Fame is the highest honor that you can receive on any level of athletics. And I was fortunate enough to be able to say this to a track team of mine, a couple of months ago. There is no higher honor that you can receive. Period and end of story. And I don't understand why. Brian, I agree with you. He's angry. Owens is angry at something.
He's been hurt. He's been hurt, Bob.
Yeah, right. But and maybe this is an incorrect twist coming from the media on the way it's being portrayed. But oftentimes it comes across as Owens isn't happy that it took 3 votes for, 3 different tries, voting processes for him to get in. And my response to that is, who cares? You are the best of the best of the best when you are a Hall of Fame anything. And, you're going to cry because you think it took too long for you to get in. Please, give me a break.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate. So, Bob,
Sure.
You're going to tell me that a guy who finished his career second behind Jerry Rice as a wide receiver should have taken 3 tries before he got into the Hall of Fame?
No.
And
he should have gotten in on the first vote based off of his achievements on the field.
Right.
I agree with you both 100%.
The question is, and it has always been this way, it's not always about what the guy does on the field. It's how he treats those writers and treated those reporters off the field. That also, it's like we're punishing you. We know we got to let you in, but we're punishing you for the delay. That's what this was about.
I'll agree with that. And again, that is unfair. But the man is in, and he doesn't have to get up behind that microphone and thank anybody for voting him in. Other than hopefully your teammates and your family, and the Lord Almighty up above. The 3 things that give us the power in life to do what we are able to do, and that's where T.O. is now separating himself from the entire process, and saying, I'm not going to do what everybody else has done. And don't get me wrong, I am far from a conformist. But there's a certain tradition based behind this Hall of Fame process. And should it have taken him 3 votes to get in? No, absolutely not. But the 3 of us can sit down and go down the list of great players. Chris Carter, Lynn Swann, Kenny Stabler, et cetera. Well, this guy should have been in a lot sooner than what he was, or this guy isn't in at all, and I don't understand that. Is it fair? No, but if you finally get through that door, you're in the door. Yeah. There's only a handful of guys that have that gold jacket and have that bronze bust that is there for all of eternity. So I don't see now where Terrell Owens is saying, I'm better than this guy that's in the Hall of Fame, or I'm better than that guy is in the Hall. No, you're on one team now. And, you choose not to be part of that team, that's fine. Then, we don't have to necessarily honor you the way that we are honoring everybody else that will be accepting their gold jackets that same weekend. Is he still getting a bust? Yes. Is his name still a Hall of Famer? Yes. Will he be getting a gold jacket? It's my understanding it's being mailed to him, but yes.
Yeah, but still, he's not going to be acknowledged publicly.
Yeah, and I do disagree with that process also. In my opinion, they're both in the wrong. The Hall of Fame typically, they'll show highlight clips, and of course have your presenter and have the honoree themselves, give the speech. Now, obviously, T.O. won't be there to have a presenter and to have the honoree. Therefore, if I'm on the committee, I don't put the whole highlight clip and everything else. I just read the name and then moving right along. And to me, both parties are wrong because they both taken an extreme stance in what their belief is, and in the process, both parties have kind of sullied what should be one of the greatest honor an individual could ever receive.
Amen. Somebody has to take the high road, and I thought the Hall of Fame was going to take the high road, and they chose not to. All right, Terrell, he's not going to do it, but we're going to take the high road, and that's what I thought should have been done, just an acknowledgement. But obviously, he ticked off the wrong person somewhere on those board of directors as well. So anyway.
And I apologize, gentlemen. Our show was rolling along with, and I derailed our train, but I really have wanted to get both of your thoughts on that. Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing your opinion.
Can I add one thing real quick on that?
Of course.
Does Terrell Owens have kids?
That's a good
I believe so, but I'm not certain.
Does he?
And playing, from what I said before, and playing devil's advocate, he's really going to regret not being able to share this story with his kids.
Yeah.
That induction, everything I do, is for my family. Everything I do, I tell my son. He's 16. And I think, like I said before, when he looks back, not being in Canton, on that beautiful day with all those people, having his family there, sharing that with his kids and his family, I think he's really going to regret it.
And you know what? That is a great point because he has 2 sons and 2 daughters. That would have been great to have them there. Yeah, you're right.
And then sometimes I feel like in this situation, he's letting the powers that be, whatever those powers that be are, whether it be the sports writers, whether it be the system, whether it be how it works, dictate his legacy. And I feel bad for him because I would never, even if I didn't like X, Y, or Z of the process or whatever it would be, if I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, I would want to share that with as many people as I could. And he's forgoing that, and I feel bad for him.
Yeah, and you do bring up a great point too. And all 3 of us are fathers, obviously, so we can certainly attest to that kind of thing. And we know how our kids have looked up at us, for the different things that we have done in our lives, be it in the sports venue or any venue, because, and I feel fairly strongly that I can speak for both of you. I know as a parent, everything that I do, the greatest reward I get back is that look that you get from your kids. That look of, it's a mixture of pride and I can't even describe it, but it's the best feeling a human being can ever receive.
Yeah, but you know what, T.O. also, and guys, he has a strained relationship with some of those kids as well. So it's difficult all the way around. If I was his friend and or relatives, I would be there encouraging him to be a part of that ceremony process. I would have. I like what Steve Young said. He reached out to him. He tried to talk to him. At least he did what he wanted to do as a former teammate and someone who cared about T.O. I just think pride in his ego has made this difficult for him to digest and be a part of the whole process, guys. And that's how I see it.
No.
Oh, I agree with that. And sometimes, you have to see the bigger picture, even though you can't see the bigger picture, and that's why you have friends like Steve Young and the people who he's played with, and managers and coaches. I'm positive he's received encouragement from those types of people and said, look, you're going to regret this, man. You need to really think about it. We want you there. We need you there. And, I just feel bad for him.
Yeah, I think Steve Mariucci reached out to him as well, Brian. Jeff Garcia, but Jeff Garcia was the only one I don't think reached out to him.
Maybe Donovan McNabb.
Do you think Donovan did? I'm not quite sure. But Tony Maromo, Tony did.
But I mean, nonetheless, Terrell Owens is getting recognized, for terrific achievements on the football field. So we do congratulate him and every other member that's getting inducted. I believe it's August 4th is the induction ceremonies. So we certainly send out our congratulations. But I'm glad you guys let me pick your brain on that. It's been eating me. I've been wanting to ask both of you that question for a while.
Yeah, and it's going to be at Tom Benson Field, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yep. Matter of fact, it is, and hopefully that Mr. Benson will have his bust permanently enshrined in Canton soon enough. Also.
Yeah, definitely. Brian, did you get a chance to know Mr. Benson?
Quite honestly, no. I didn't get to know him very well. I did not, and I regret that. From all my discussions with everyone I've known in New Orleans, he's a wonderful, wonderful person.
Mm-hmm.
I regret not knowing him.
Wow.
Oh, Brian, I wanted to ask you too. New Orleans Saints fans, and we that cover the team, we hear it every single year at draft time. Why don't the Saints draft LSU players? Why don't the Saints draft LSU players? Now, what I wanted to ask you is, and Mr. John Butler asked me to, suggest that I ask you this question. Coming from Penn State and growing up near Erie, Pennsylvania, you were a very short drive away from Cleveland, Ohio, and obviously a short drive away from the hometown Pittsburgh Steelers. Did you have any conversations with reps of either the Browns or the Steelers, either leading up to you being drafted or at any point as a free agent through your NFL career?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you a little story that no one knows. When I was going through the draft and you talked to each team, I spoke with the representatives from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And looking back, I almost regret saying what I said, because when I said it, I was being completely honest. The recruiter, the employee of the Steelers, asked whether or not I was going to go for the 96 Olympics or go in the NFL draft. Mm-hmm. And I answered him honestly. I said, well, it's going to depend on how high I get drafted. In that instance, afterwards, they drafted my roommate, John Whitman, for the Steelers. I do remember
Whitman leading the way.
Yeah, if I would have said it's football all the way, I would have probably been a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Wow.
No doubt in my mind. Because John and I split time at Penn State, and not many people know this. We were friends. We were roommates. We went deer hunting together in the hills of Pennsylvania. And come that season, we were like, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to split? We both wanted to play in the NFL. We both wanted to do well. So we devised kind of a system. And Coach Paterno, I don't think, even knew this. I don't think anybody knew it. Or John started the game. And basically the way it worked was, if John had a long drive, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plays, then the next drive I would go in. If it was a 3 and out, John would continue to play. And the same thing with me. If I had a 3 and out, I would go in the next series on offense. So we remain friends. We split playing time on probably one of the greatest offenses in history of Penn State, and nobody knew it.
Wow.
Wow. That just goes to show how much trust that you guys earned from not only Paterno, but from your offensive coordinator, Fran Ganser, as well.
Yeah. Fran's a great man. He was a great coordinator, great coach. I can't say enough good things about Fran Ganser.
Awesome.
Wow, and I believe. Well, I know Bill Cowher was coach of the Steelers when you came out. I think Tom Donahue was the general manager. I don't remember. And
he was.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to throw any names under the bus. But I know there's a lot of Steeler fans that tune in. So there you have it, folks. If it wasn't for Coach Cowher, Coach Cowher and Donahue, Brian Milne could have been leading the way for Jerome Bettis rather than John Whitman.
Yeah, I missed out on driving the bus.
Well, that's okay. We're glad you spent at least part of your career in New Orleans for sure.
He had a purpose. You had a purpose, Brian,
yep.
And your purpose was to get
Agreed.
that football from a king.
Agreed. I agree with you.
You had a purpose, babe.
Yes.
Do you miss the college or the pro game? Do you miss the college or the pro game more?
I would think college because it's I would think it's a little intimate. You got. I would just say college. I would say I would go back to college before I would go back to a pro game. A little more fun.
I know. Yeah, you mentioned your son Connor, and he is a freshman or sophomore player in high school now.
He is a young junior. He'll be going into his junior year at Archbishop Moeller. He's 6'3", 295.
Woo!
And he just turned 16 in March. So
hold on. 6'3", 295. And how old?
Yes, he's 16. He turned 16 in March.
Oh my
He's
goodness.
6'3", 295. He is not a running back. Make that clear. He's more of a bull in a china shop. But he's bigger than me. So yeah, he's going to be a force to reckon with. So
have you guys been hearing from recruiters already?
They can't talk to him until their junior year. So I'm hoping this fall that some schools are gonna show some interest. But from my standpoint, he's got 2 more years to play. And it only takes one school to say, hey, we want you to come play for us. Just like in the draft, it only takes one team. So his goal is to get his education paid for, and that's all I'm worried about.
Awesome. Education
yeah, exactly.
First.
And I know Coach Paterno always preached to you guys also that education came first. And I'm hoping that there are still a lot of college coaches out there that can get behind that philosophy. 100% of them should, but unfortunately, we know that that's not the way the world works.
Right.
And I know that, we mentioned it a little bit last night. There's still a fundraiser going on where the kids have the ability to raise money for their football program.
Right. Yeah, we have a program. Any businesses, local businesses, can call the school, Archbishop Moeller, Cincinnati, Ohio, and put an ad in the program. I'm sure most programs have that, so that's a good way to either get your business out or just say hello.
Not only that, but support youth football or any opportunity to support youth sports and arts programs. They're obviously a great cause.
Absolutely.
Do you guys remember the back when ESPN covered sports? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
It's like when MTV used to have music videos.
Exactly.
Thank you. I say that to my kids, and they say, "Well, they still do." I said, "No, it's not. Never mind. You don't understand." But anyway, ESPN used to have. I think it was ESPN used to have this game called Rapid Fire. They would have a guest on, and then fire off some questions at them. You guys remember that game?
Yep.
I do remember that, yes.
All right. Brian, are you up for a couple of questions?
Sure, I'll try, but it's after 10 o'clock, so I'm ready to go to bed, my friend.
We will wrap it up in a few minutes, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
I'll tell you what, not counting what Kyle wants to ask you, I'll shoot two at you.
Okay.
Better quarterback that you played with through your career? Kerry Collins, Boomer Esiason, Jeff Blake, or Aaron Brooks?
I really like Boomer. Boomer would get to play in the huddle, and he would change it because he didn't like it. And I like leadership. And that's not taking anything away from any of the other quarterbacks. I just really connected with Boomer. He's a great guy, has a great family. So I guess my gut said Boomer.
Okay. Most talented running back that you paved the way for? Kijana Carter, who you played with two different times. Garrison Hurst, Ricky Waters, or Ricky Williams?
Oh, that's so hard. I'm going to say Kijana Carter. And, knowing Kijana as long as I have, his family, he's a great he went to the wrong team when he was drafted.
Yeah.
He got hurt. And throughout his career, he battled so many injuries, but he always came back and he had, the heart, the fortitude to come back. But blocking for him was a treat. I knew if I made my block and we could get him to the second level, it was over. So I would say Kijana Carter.
A lot of people actually have made comparisons between Kijana and Saquon Barkley, who was drafted, I think, second overall by the Giants coming out of Penn State this year.
I think Saquon Barkley's a little more. I think Saquon Barkley's a little more athletic than Kijana was at Penn State, but Kijana had those huge legs, that strong center of gravity, and he could just roll over people. Where I think Saquon Barkley still has that same strength, but I think Saquon's more of a finesse runner. I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah. You have to.
And I lied. I actually want to ask you one more, and I think I know the answer to this, and you certainly don't have to relay any stories. Craziest personality you played with?
Oh, it has to be. The first person that comes to mind is Joe Horn. Man, I love that guy. He, there's something, I would say Joe with the Saints, but like Carl Pickens and Darnay Scott with the Bengals. Mm-hmm. Those guys, they were crazy. They had fun. They would jump up on the weight bench and dance, and they make you laugh. They make a 3-13 season a little better if that's possible. So yeah, they do my top three: Joe, Darnay Scott, and Carl Pickens.
All right, awesome. Well, Brian, it's been a pleasure having you on the show with us.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really has. We'd love to have you back on. I know you get crazy busy during the school year, really coming up because you coach varsity football, and then you turn around and get heavily involved in coaching track as well. So the school year is pretty busy for you.
It is, but I always make time for you guys.
Oh, I appreciate it. Consider the Bayou Blitz, and I know that I'm speaking for Sean and Alan too. Their show Under the Dome. Consider yourself part of the family now, and anytime you want to reach out and be part of the show or get something off your chest or promote anything, we want to have you back on as often as you'd like.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the family, and you have a great night.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Take care, Brian. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Good.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. All right, man. That's awesome, Brian Milne.
Yeah, he really is an impressive personality. I mean, he was a heck of a football player, but he is such an impressive personality too. The nicest guy in the world. He and his wife Tammy both have been extremely engaging with me and helpful with me. I've been trying to get nail Brian down either for an article or for an interview for quite some time, and I got to say, now that we've got him, he surpassed my expectations. That's for sure.
Yeah, he was a great engaging guest. His knowledge and man, it's just good to have somebody like that to be able to share with us on the air, man. Let me ask you this, Bob, and this is kind of a World Cup question for you. I know you like soccer, right?
No, but I'll do the best I can.
I thought you were a soccer guy. Oh, well, track and field.
Volleyball and track.
All right. So, what were your impressions of the World Cup?
It is such an intense tournament, and I didn't tune in that often. But when I did, it's once you start watching, it's hard to pull yourself away,
right.
Because it is just such raw, intense competition. It's part of the reason that a lot of us love high school sports so much, because it's not about the dollars and cents or anything like that. Those guys are, those guys and women, when it comes to women's sports, they're out there for competition. They're out there for each other. They're out there to win and lose. I have always wished that soccer was more popular in the United States, and never really understood why it hasn't been. Because there's plenty of youth soccer programs available, for kids in every state and every school district. Mainly because the sport itself doesn't cost that much money, as much money as say, football or some of the other sports where you need a whole bunch of equipment. It's a little bit more basic. So I don't understand, especially when we had such an intense competition like the World Cup in this case, televised all over the networks and everything like that. I don't understand why it doesn't become more popular in the United States, and I never really heard a decent explanation for why not.
Yeah, culturally, I think you have a divide, but also East Coast soccer is really big. I know down here in the South, especially in Texas, with the Hispanic population is huge here in Houston, man. It's huge, and West Coast is huge. I think the divide comes mostly, in Midwest areas. It may not be as popular there, and I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking. I hear a lot of East Coast. I hear a lot of Florida. I hear here in Texas, but there are certain areas it's just hasn't caught on, But I was asking the question, why? What were your thoughts about and impressions about the World Cup? Because you had these young kids who were immigrants from Africa.
Mm-hmm.
who really led that France team to victory, as well as the Belgium team were contending as well, you know? And I'm just thinking, if there's some good talent like that out there playing soccer, could some of these guys translate well to the NFL?
Yeah, well, sure, because an athlete is an athlete, and obviously the differences between soccer and football are obvious. Just like any sport. But an athlete is still an athlete at the end of the day. And maybe that's because that's one of the reasons why soccer isn't more popular, because once your youth athletes get up to a certain level, then your football coaches and I'm sorry, West Allegheny, your track coaches, that they watch at the high school level and even middle school level, they watch these other sports. And even I would go to scout gym classes, and some of the fastest runners, as they were goofing around or things like that, I'd poach them. I really would, and I would recruit them away. So that does take away from your soccer programs. But I think you're really on to something. Even the young players on France, they are a little bit older than kids that I just mentioned. But you could still, you look at a player like David Onyemata for the Saints, for example. He got started in playing football late in life, and there's a bunch of players throughout NFL history that didn't have an opportunity to play organized football as youth, and maybe would concentrate on soccer or other sports. But at some point in time, some scout or some coach somewhere noticed their athletic talent and said to themselves exactly what the question that you just posed. Hey, I think I can translate that talent onto an NFL football field. So we've certainly seen success from it. We've heard Sean Payton say, never leave any rock unturned. We look for talent everywhere, and you look through the history of some of his drafts, and Onyemata is just one example. You can certainly find talent from what you'd call obscure, positions. It doesn't all have to come from the major powerhouse universities. But at the same time, the talent pool is only so deep. So that, that does affect soccer, and, other what they call minor sports for sure.
Right. Exactly. So I'm just wondering, man, you like you say, we look for different rocks. I know they tried out a rugby guy out in San Francisco, was it a couple years ago, didn't really translate well to NFL all in all, but will we see some of these guys from soccer make a transition? Could that possibly be? Because I heard Usain Bolt say he's going to try his hand at soccer. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see how we can have the fastest man alive out there on the soccer field. A lot of territory to be, gained, but can he be able to control that ball? But anyway, Bob, good show, man. What's going on with you this week? What's happening with Canal Street Chronicles and those guys?
Well, and as always, both at Canal Street Chronicles and through the Saints News Network, Saints fans, watch both publications because we try to get on top of breaking news as thoroughly and as quickly as we can. But football is real football is just around the corner.
Yes.
Saints open training camp on July 26th, I believe, is their first official day.
Yeah.
So I myself am starting to wrap up my positional previews for the New Orleans Saints as they near training camp. I just released a piece previewing the linebackers today. I know Barry Hurstis over at Saints News Network, John Hendricks, John Sigler, Deuce Wyndham, and a number of other very talented writers over at Canal Street Chronicles. We're going to be starting to feature training camp battles and veterans that are perhaps on the roster bubble or unheralded players that you maybe didn't hear about before to watch out for. So there's going to be a lot of content coming out of both Saints News Network and the Canal Street Chronicles over the next couple of weeks. Because, ladies and gentlemen, football's finally here again.
Yes, definitely. And I know Barry Hurstis will be at a couple of the Saints practices. And this year, guys, Kyle T. Mosley may have a chance to be able to be at a few of those practices as well. So I may be motoring my way down and possibly giving you guys some first-hand analysis from what I see and witness from our beloved New Orleans Saints.
That would certainly be terrific. And I know, here on the Bayou Blitz, we're going to get a couple people on that have been able to go to Saints training camp and get their reports. We have a big guest lined up for us next week. To follow up our big guest this week. And I still have to confirm, so I'm not quite ready to get 100% confirmation. So I'm not quite ready to drop the name publicly yet. But we will do so. As soon as he wraps up some of the commitments that he's going through. And Kyle, you and Barry, and I know John Hendricks over on Canal Street Chronicles, and you guys are going to be attending this Saints camp. As much as I would love to, I'm not going to be able to make it down there this summer, although I will come down for a game or two this fall. That's already set in stone.
Awesome.
What I'm going to do, actually, Steelers training camp is just up the road. And, the Saints, of course, play the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. So I'll be given a, kind of a view of the enemy, for lack of a better term. And during the football season as well, I'm lining up a couple guests for this show here. Former players for Saints opponents. I know we had a lot of fun with David Harrison and James Yarko, who covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. So we're going to do that kind of thing as the season progresses as well. We're going to have a lot of fun this season.
Look, man, I'll look forward to it. To be with you guys each week. I don't know if I'm going to have the bandwidth to do every week, but I know all in all, Bob, we're going to have some good shows. Also here on the Saints News Network, if you guys don't recall, Derek Stevens was the professor, and he had a young man on with him, Brendan Borland, as his protege before he passed away. Brendan is going to return to the Saints News Network with his own podcast called The Butler's Pantry, and he's going to give his take not only on the New Orleans Saints, but most of the NFL and some other sports items too. So his show will be debuting on August 3rd, and it will be every Monday evening at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So be on the lookout for Brendan's take on the world of sports. He's a bright young man. He just graduated from Gardner Webber. Yeah. So we'll see how everything takes out with Brendan. And Bob, keep doing the great writings over there at Canal Street Chronicles. We need to have you have a quick guest spot on Saints News Network, so let us know when we can make that happen.
Yeah, we're definitely going to make that happen. Also, like you like to put it, Kyle, we're all family, and we're all shooting for the same goal, and that is to bring the best and hopefully the most entertaining content to our readers, to our viewers, to our listeners, because we're all in this together. We're all rooting for the same thing. To have someone like Brian Milne on, or even people that cover other NFL teams, it gives you kind of a close camaraderie. So yeah, absolutely. And I know Canal Street Chronicles and Saints News Network, they work very, very closely hand in hand. So yeah, you could definitely expect a couple articles to swing over that direction as well. A couple of show tie-ins between this show and Under the Dome. So happy to have Brendan going to be active again for Saints News Network. As soon as I heard the news yesterday, I reached out to him. I said, "What night do you want to do it, and when do you want to come on here to preview it?" So excited to have Brendan and his viewpoints and analysis back on as well.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. And also, from time to time, I made a decision not to fully retire, but I'm going to do some special Crescent City connections with some one-on-one interviews with some interesting people behind the scenes in the world of the Who Dat Nation. So be tuned in for that. No special nights. It's just going to be one of those specials that we shall have a part of the network. And guys, we're looking out for someone who's willing to talk some fantasy football on the NFL Huddle. That is one of our shows that we had a few years ago that was very, very popular across the nation. So if you guys know of anyone who would like to do some fantasy football podcasting, reach out to me at kmosley@saintsnews.net. And not only that, but as always, guys, reach out to either Kyle or myself. Let us know how we can make this show and our articles better for you. If we're missing something, tell us what we're missing. If you want to see more of something, tell us what you want to see more of. This is your show every bit as much as it is ours. So remember that, please. Definitely. And Bob, how can everybody find you on social media?
Well, I'm on Facebook under my name, under Bob Rose. And Canal Street Chronicles and Saints News Network can both be found on Facebook as well under the same name. All of us are on Twitter as well. My handle is at Bobby R 2613. Saints News Network can, of course, be found at Saints News. And this show, replays of it can also be found there. We post replays of it every week. Canal Street Chronicles can be found at Saints CSC. So we're really easy to find. And like I said, guys, we want to hear from you. Make this your show, because it is.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget, I know this is a busy tropical storm season for a lot of people along the Gulf Coast region, and our sister website, GulfCoastHurricanes.com. You can always go there to check up on the latest of what's happening in the Gulf as well as in the Atlantic when it comes to storm activities. So I'm just putting that out there for you guys. That is a service that's out there for our listeners, and to be able to kind of keep yourself safe, guys. And I know down here in Houston we had a lot of flooding last storm season due to Hurricane Harvey, and still praying for a lot of people who are just getting back onto their feet or still trying to get back onto their feet. The owner of my company is just moving back into her home after almost a year, man. So it's just one of those things, and just keep everybody in prayer. Don't forget to keep the Gailey family in prayer since losing Coach Rick, as well as communicated with Derek's dad. He's still having a hard time missing his son. So we have a lot of people. Just keep everyone in prayer, and we'll be keeping you in prayer as well. This is Kyle T. Mosley and Mr. Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz signing off. Be safe, Who Dat Nation. Peace. We see you guys next week. God be with us. Take care.